Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is Ayin Bet, daf 72 of Sanhedrin. We are at the Mishnah, about one that begins 6 lines down, 6 lines up from the bottom of Ayin Aleph Amud Bet. We are talking about Ben Sohar Mora. Let me share my screen and we'll get really started. We Yesterday we went through all the things that a Ben Sohar Mora needs to do in order to be liable. We noted that they have to eat meat and drink wine. They have to get to the point where they're stealing from their parents, whether it's just the father or both of them, is a machlokas, but steal from the father and eat and then buy cheap wine and cheap meat and eat it somewhere else, meaning eat it not in the father's property, because if the father saw it, he would rebuke the son, and that would stop the process of habit forming. And we saw that both the parents need to want to do it. They both have to be fully capable, fully able to see, point, in order to point at the child, et cetera, et cetera. But we really did not understand what in the world did this kid do wrong. And that's really where we begin today with today's Mishnah. So, despite the fact that all he's done is steal and to feed a habit of eating meat and drinking wine, why is that enough to get him killed? And so the Mishnah says it in a very short form. We'll explain it in greater detail in the Gemara. So Ben Sohar Mora nidon al shem sofo, that he's judged based on his outcome, what's going to eventually happen to him. So yamut zakai va'al yamut chayav, let him die in a way, in a status of being innocent rather than being guilty. Shemisa san shel rishayim hana lahen v'hana lo'olam, because at the end of the day, the death of somebody who's wicked is, you know what? It's actually good for them, because they can no longer do any more wickedness in this world. And so whatever their status is frozen, and therefore they're going to be able to, they'll benefit from that. And and it's beneficial to the world, because the world doesn't have to suffer through their wickedness. Let's tzaddikim. But when it comes to the death of a righteous person, it's bad for them, because they can no longer do virtuous acts, and it's bad for the world because those virtuous acts make the world a better place. Yayin v'sheina l'rishayim. And then, so having talked about death in this way, we're now going to use 4 other parallels of where something is good or bad, good for the righteous and bad for the wicked, or good for the wicked and bad for the righteous. So let's see what we're talking about. Yayin v'sheina l'rishayim, when it comes to wine and sleep for the wicked, hanalahen v'hanala olam, when they are drunk and sleepy, so that's good for them. And it's good for the world, the gun, because when you're drunk and sleepy, you can't do anything, right? You really like, I Stan here really likes this one. But for the righteous, that's not a good thing. And so as a result, it's not the greatest thing to be, this is a Gemara highlighting the dangers of alcohol. Pizur l'rishayim, hanala hen v'hanala olam. So when it comes to the being spread out around the world, as opposed to being able to gather together, well, then when you're spread out, that's good for the wicked, again, because it prevents them from conspiring together. In fact, the reason that we have higher penalties for conspiracies is because conspiracies can do more damage. And again, it's good for the world because they can't do these conspiracies. But on the other hand, when it comes to the righteous, having them spread apart is bad for them, because they don't have the ability to gather together and facilitate positive acts. Kinus l'rishayim, ralahen v'rala olam, l'tzadikim hanalahen v'hanala olam. And not surprisingly, the exact opposite of spreading out, gathering together, is bad for the wicked and bad for the world, and whereas it's good for the righteous and good for the world. Sheket l'rishayim, and similarly, when it comes to being quiet, when it comes to things that are, having a peaceful life, well, when it comes for the wicked, it's bad if things are easy for the wicked, because then they'll be more wicked. They have no incentive to improve. But let's hadikim hanalahen v'la hanala olam. But when it comes to silence and quietness and a peaceful life, so then it's good for the righteous and good for the world. Okay, so that was our Mishnah. And again, our Mishnah very generally said we have to be worried about the outcome, the end result of this child. So what exactly is that? That's where a brisa comes in, and the Gemara tells us. And we're now at the top of Ayin Bet Amud Aleph.
How is Pisa the Rishayim good to the Rishayim?
Because they're being spread out is going to prevent them from conspiring with one another. And so as a result, they will do fewer bad acts.
But isn't that good for them? Because they want to do act. The wicked want to conspire.
That's interesting.
So they can't do what they want to do because they're spread out. So it's not good for them.
Interesting. Let me see. Hold on just a second. You're absolutely right. You raise a great point.
Good for the world, I understand that, but it's not good for them if they want to conspire and do it. And
yeah, you're right that on some level, it should be good for them. No. It is good. The point is that when they're spread out, it's good for them. It's not bad for them. It's when they're gathered together that it's bad for them.
No, if they're spread out, they can't do their wickedness because there's one here, one there. When they get together.
Exactly. So it's good for them because meaning we're speaking about them in a third party perspective. They may feel that it's bad for them, but we know from a righteous point of view. Thank you, Stan. From a righteous point of view, that it's good for them, that they're not going to be able to do the same number of bad acts. And so as a result, that's positive for them and for the world.
Even though they might not realize it.
Exactly. They might not realize it. But when we say that it's good for them, we mean really good for them as people who are being judged in the eyes of God. Maybe it begins their healing. That's what we mean. So when they're spread out, and if we take a look at the last Rashi, shenifradim zeh mizeh, when these wicked people are separate from one another, ve'ein yichon lahu, it's etza ra, and therefore they can't advise each other with bad advice, and they can't help each other do their bad deeds. So that makes them less wicked, and therefore it's good for them.
So ultimately, it's good for them, but it's
yes. Oh, 100%. That's what we're talking.
But it's not good for good for them, quote, to enable to do them to their wicked deeds. So
no. We mean good for them in a God-viewed world.
Right. Okay. All right.
So now Gemara is going to detail what was it that was about this child that's going to be bad. So we cite a brisa that goes into a little bit more detail. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer, v'chi mibnei she'achol zed tartemar shel basar v'shasa chatzi log yayin ha'italki amra Torah yitzei leves din l'sakel. Could it possibly be because the kid ate some meat and had some wine that we're going to take him out and stone him? Of course not. Now, we've seen this precise beginning tell us, and the end of that brisa, which was not by Rabbi Yossi Agli, but somebody else, said that, of course, this was because it never happened, never will happen, etc. But here he answers a different answer. Ella higia Torah l'sof dato shel ben Soromor. But rather, the Torah is sort of telling us what the outcome will be for this kid. Shesof migamer nichsei aviv. He's going to run out of the property of his father's estate. Umevakesh limudo ve'eno motzei. He's going to want to continue his practices, and he's not going to be able to do so. V'yotzi. So what? And how is he going to therefore afford it? V'yotzi lefarashas drachim. So he'll go out to the crossroads. Umilastem esabrios, and he's going to act as an armed robber and steal from people. So Amra Torah yamut zakai v'al yamut chayav. So let him die innocently and let him not die guilty. Shemisa son shel rishayim hana lahen v'hana la'olam u'tzadikim ra lahem v'ra la'olam. Because again, the death of the wicked is good for them and good for the world. Here, it stops this wicked child from doing anything or anything worse. And so of course, it's a little bit odd because we say let him die innocent. He's not totally innocent, but in any event, the point is that he's innocent of the greater crimes. Okay, and then the Brisa continues, highlighting some of the points that we made in our Mishnah. Sheina v'yayin l'rishayim hana lahem v'hana la'olam l'tzadikim ra lahem v'ra la'olam. So again, the sleep and wine are good for the wicked and good for the world. But when it comes to when it's the righteous that are drinking it, it's bad for them and bad for the world. Sheket l'rashaim, being at peace for the wicked, ra lahem v'ra la'olam, is bad for them and bad for the world. L'tzadikim hana lahem v'hana la'olam, and for the righteous, it's good for them and good for the world. Pizar l'rashaim, when they're spread out, hana lahem v'hana la'olam, it's good for them and good for the world when the wicked are spread out. L'tzadikim, but when the righteous are spread out, ra lahem v'ra la'olam, but it's bad for the righteous because again, having the ability to advise one another is a positive thing. It's interesting to think about the ramifications of this in the modern world when we have communication and etc. Exactly. When
hardened criminals in one penitentiary, what do they cook up?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's the point. That's consistent. Exactly. Exactly. So, all right. So that concludes our discussion of Ben Saromora. And now, having discussed one situation where somebody is killed because of what would happen in the future, the Mishnah discusses another. What's interesting is that although the Ben Saromora is going to be killed by the court, here we're about to talk about a situation where the killing is not by the court, but instead by somebody else, by a private citizen. So Habam Machteres Nidon al Shem Sofo. When it comes to somebody who's tunneling into your home to steal from you, that person is judged based on their end. Rashi tells us, Habam Machteres, third line in the Mishnah, Sha'amra Torah Yarag, because the Torah tells us to kill this person. So the Torah specifically says that if somebody is digging under your wall to come into your house to steal from you, you are allowed to go ahead and kill that person. And why is it nidon al shem sofo? Continuing in Rashi, daha lo katal umaktil mishum de sofo laharog. That here we don't want him to kill, and so we kill him because of his end. Laharog balabayas. Because we're worried that he's going to come and kill the owner of the house. If the owner of the house were to say, hey, you're not stealing from me, well, what is the guy going to do? He's already dug under your house in order to get in. He's not going to hesitate to shoot you dead. And so as a result, we're going to thereby punish him. So, if somebody came under the wall and tunneled in and broke some vessel of yours, im yeshlo damim, if he has blood, meaning that you are not allowed to kill him. And now, where is that situation? When is that situation? We'll discuss that in a moment. But let's take a look in Rashi. Yeshlo damim chayev. Chayev is the next word. Im eno roi lihareg. If you cannot kill him, kigon av al haben. Rashi tells us what the situation will be like if a father digs into his son's house. Detanya lekamen, as we will see in a brisa shortly. De'ena ben rishoi laharog es aviv. In that situation, the son is not allowed to kill the father. Habal lav b'makteres, who comes into his house through tunneling. Because if the son stands up to the father's going to have mercy on the son. And he's not coming to kill him. And if his son faces and confronts him in an effort to try and save his money, the father doesn't intend to kill him. We'll see that it's not a blanket rule, but it's the presumption. So the im ein lo damim pater. But if in fact the person who has dug into your house is somebody that you're allowed to kill, and he broke some vessel of yours, then you're allowed to kill the guy, but you're not going to get paid for the vessel because of the concept of kimle b'derabba mineh, that he gets the worst penalty. The worst penalty, and it's even if he escapes, meaning even if he escapes, he's not going to be subject to having to pay. Amar Rava, my time of demachteris. What's the reason that we can kill this person as he's digging in? Because there's a presumption that people don't stop themselves from defending their property. Meaning there's a reason that we have in this country a lot of states that have stand your ground laws that allow somebody who is protecting their home to stand their grounds. Behind Maimar Amar, and so as a result, this burglar is certainly saying to himself, if I go in, he's gonna face me, below shavikli, and he's not gonna allow me to take him stuff. And so if he confronts me, I'm gonna have to kill him. So Torah Amra Imba Lahorgach Hashkem Lahargo. And the Torah tells us that if somebody's coming to kill you, you have a right, indeed maybe even an obligation, to kill them first. Okay, so Amar Rav. So now Rav is going to teach a ruling that is related to this, and we'll see whether or not our Mishnah supports him, and we're going to try and go back and forth as to whether or not Rav is correct. We're not going to be able to prove in the end one way or the other, but it does seem like we do not paskin like this Rav's ruling. But let's hear what the ruling is, and you can tell me what you think. Now, if in fact the person dug into your house, he stole something, and now he left with it, does he have to give it back to you? So according to the literal statement of Rav, he does not have to give it back to you. And again, it's because of the concept of kimle b'derabba mineh, that he has to, that he's subject to the higher penalty. My time, why is it that he's not going to be liable to return the goods? B'damim kananhu, because he's acquired it with his own blood, because he's effectively subject to the death penalty, or potentially being killed. So Amar Rava, nah, that doesn't make any sense. Mistabra milse derab b'shishiber. When Rav says that, it's okay. It makes sense in the context where after he stole the item, as he's going out of the house, the item falls and breaks. Right, the clumsy criminal. Right, because now the item is no longer in existence. So it makes sense. It's just like the item that was broken in our Mishnah, where we say that the guy doesn't have to pay back. So too, he wouldn't have to pay back here. Aval not all low, but if he actually took it, it doesn't make any sense to say that. However, Elokim, Amar Rav afilu nato. But the truth is, God would say that if I had to know what Rav really meant, he really means even if he takes it, even if he actually keeps it. Daha yeshlo damim v'nenzu, because the whole point is that he's paid for it with his blood, and so as a result, it's as if it was like something where something bad happened to it, right? If I steal from you, right, and then a vase, a $1,000 vase, and then I drop it, right, because I picked it up and took possession of it as a thief, I am still going to owe you the $1,000 vase, but that's because I effectively took ownership of it on some level as a thief who picked it up and took possession of it. If, on the other hand, and so as a result, even if somebody else were to come in and I were to now have this vase in my own house,
right,
and I have the vase in my own house,
right,
protected, etc., and somebody else comes in, or there's an earthquake and there's nothing I can do about it and it breaks, I'm still responsible because I took possession of it from when I stole it from you. So as a result, and chayav, I'm going to be liable for you if anything bad happens. Alma birshusei kayemi. So doesn't that show? This is the Rava explaining the logic behind Rav's ruling. It shows that the thief has become the owner of it. So hachinami birshusei kayemi. And so as a result, we'll let the existing when I come in to your house tunneling in, God forbid, I'll keep it all. Now I'll get to keep it because I've effectively taken possession of it as a thief, and now it's as if it's mine because I paid with it with my blood. So velohi. But Rava says this is not correct. I disagree with Rav because ki okimna rachamana b'dur b'shusei. Because when does the Torah tell me that we're going to treat this vase as something that belongs to me? L'inyan onsin. That's only with respect to something that happens to it, because the Torah wants to make me liable to you, Stan, if something were to happen. Aval l'inyan mikna. But when it comes to actually it being mine and something I could keep, birshusei demarai hu kaime. It still stands. Midi dehava ashoel. It's like a borrower. I'm a borrower when we treat it as if I own it, because a borrower is liable for even accidents. And so as a result, that's the situation. So we have this disagreement between Rav and Rava. Now I see that you have a puzzled face. So what do you think?
there.
Hold on just a second, Ken.
But he's greater. He's great. He's going to shed his own blood for what he did, right?
Right,
he's
correct.
greater for the higher penalty.
Right.
So that gives him the right to keep the vase.
According to Rav, that's exactly right. Now, Rava says, no, it does not. It allows you to be treated like a borrower with respect to that vase.
So then you got to pay.
But you still got to give it. Exactly.
Now, if that's a conundrum there, because you're going to pay with your life.
Correct. Exactly.
It doesn't work that way in the American courts.
No, it does not. Sure. It does not work that way in American courts. There is no kimle b'derabamine in the American courts. Go ahead, Ken.
How does I guess Rav? How does he make an opinion against Meforish pasuk in the Torah says that a gun of Mishalem kefil?
Because that's not talking about a bab mechteres. Right? It's talking about a ganav. A regular ganav is not liable to be killed. You're not allowed to just kill somebody who, walks into your house and takes something away from you. You're not allowed to kill that person. Only the person who's sneaking into your house, where we suspect that he's concerned, that he's done, that if you confront him, he's going to kill you. That's where we're going to say that. But it's not a general rule. You're absolutely right. And so he would not have any problem with those psukim.
Does the tunneling have more to it than just tunneling? For example, I walk into your house with a weapon. Instead of tunneling, which is a direct threat to you, do you have the right to kill me?
So if in fact you make a direct threat, absolutely.
In
so then
Jewish law.
Yes, in Jewish law, absolutely. And we're going to get to a little bit of that shortly. So did that answer your question? Because we're going to now try and prove each way on this machlokas. So let's take a look. So Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Baba Machteret, the Shiber Eschachavis, Yesh lo damim chayiv, ein lo damim pater. We said that if it breaks, then if when you came in, you are killable, well, then you're not going to be liable. But if you are not if you're not allowed to be killed, well, then you would be liable. So time of Deshiber. The implication is only because it broke. Dechi ein lo damim pater. That's why you are going to be exempt if you have no blood, meaning if you can be killed. Hanadol lo. But if the person just took it, isn't the implication of our Mishnah that you'd have to give it back? Not necessarily. Hu hadin, the law could be the same. Dafilu natol nami, that even when you take it, as long as it's if you're subject to being killed, you'd be allowed to keep it. So well, then why tell me about the fact that you broke it? Because wouldn't it be a bigger chiddush to tell me that if I stole it, that I don't have to give it back? So Kamash Malan, the Kiyesh Lo Damim, Afal Gav de Shiber Nami Chayv. No, the point is that when the person is not subject to being killed, I might have thought that if he broke it, he wouldn't be liable. And so the point is that therefore, we're telling you that when you cannot kill him, he is going to be liable if he breaks it. But Pshita, that's obvious. Maziku, he damaged you. He broke your vase. So, of course, he should be liable. If you can't kill him, there's no kimle b'derabamine. And so, as a result, when he breaks your vase, he should be liable. So Hakamashwan, this is what it's teaching us. Even if he didn't do it intentionally, he was trying to be so careful with this vase because he wanted to, resell it. He wanted to pawn it, exactly. And now it broke completely unintentionally. And so maybe you might think that he's not going to be liable, but so he said that. So our Mishnah tells us that he's going to be liable. My Kamashwan, Adamud La'olam, what are you talking about? We have a Mishnah that specifically says, we saw it back in Bava Kama, that specifically says you're going to be liable because a person is always liable for anything that they do. So Tanina, because we have this Mishnah on Adam Muad La'olam, Bain B'Shogeg, Bain B'Mezid, Bain B'Onus, Bain B'Ratzon. Doesn't make a difference whether it's intentional or not intentional, whether you did willingly or not willingly. However you do it, if you break something, you are liable. So if this is really a problem, and the Gemara answers, Kasha, you're absolutely right. It is difficult. It is a good question. Now, Rashi points out, why is it only a good question and not a tiyufta? Not is it a full refutation? So that's helpful because we see, because this is telling us a general principle, a principle generally. 8th line down in the wide lines of Rashi, towards the end of the line, Kasha. Kasha masnisin l'tarutza aliba de Rab. It's difficult, this answer, according to Rab, because after all, we already know the fact that you're going to be liable. Umikol makom tiyufta lo havi, but it's not an absolute refutation. Dela behedya katani la nato chayiv, because our Mishnah does not specifically say that if you took it, you would be liable. So as a result, that would be a complete refutation. V'ika l'shenuye b'ducha, and we can answer it in a little bit of a stretch kind of way. Demishum reisha nakat shavar, that because the beginning of the Mishnah talked about it being broken, because we wanted to tell you that there was liability for the person who was not going to get killed. So as a result, we're also telling you this for the person who is going to get killed, that there's that because we said in the beginning of the Mishnah that that if he can't be killed, he's going to be liable. So as a result, we're also going to say the one that if you're we're going to say at the end that if you're the person who cannot be killed, you're going to be pater. And this difference of whether or not one can come up with a stretch kind of answer is the difference between a kushya and a tiyuvta in the Gemara. So again, according to, as Rashi explains, the Mishnah is difficult according to Rav, but it's not a refutation because our Mishnah does not explicitly say that one's liable for taking a vessel, and one can answer that the end of the Mishnah discusses a case of breakage because the beginning of the Mishnah does. And so even though it means the end doesn't teach us anything new, that's okay because this is the difference between a good question, and a refutation. Okay.
The person is not, we don't say that he's absolutely liable in this.
Correct. If in fact he came in and would have been killable by you, so then you would not be able to get recompensed for any damages that he did. It's interesting to think about all those movies where somebody comes in a sneaky way and then the person fights the guy and everything gets broken and damaged during the course of the fight. So there would be no liability in those situations according to Torah law.
But if it's not damaged and he takes it and you catch they catch the thief.
So we're continuing. So that's now we're going to try
So
and
why that we don't do we say anywhere here that the Balabayit is miyayish? If he's not
no, no,
miyayish,
no, no, 100% not. We're not saying miyayish at all. The question is whether his liability for being killed is enough to cause him to be able to keep it. And again, Rava and Rav disagree about this, and I believe that we end up posking like Rava that in fact, if the item exists, you have to pay back. But we're still not
so
there
that
yet.
right.
We're
So
going to
then
ask
with that,
one
then
more
he's not
question.
miyayish. So
Correct,
therefore,
correct, 100%.
if
The,
they
the
find
Gemara
the
is still in the
thief,
middle of the discussion. So
okay.
Masiv Rabivi Bar Abaye. Now, in the end, again, we're not going to come to a definitive conclusion, but it will be interesting to see that Rava, even himself, refused to follow his own ruling in a moment because of what Rav said. So Masiv Rabivi Bar Abaye Hagonev Kis B'Shabbos. If somebody steals a purse on Shabbos, Chayiv, he's liable to pay for it. Because Shahari Nischayev Begeneba, Kodem Sheyavu Lidei Isser Shabbos. Because when does he become liable for stealing? As soon as he lifts it in the person's house. But lifting in somebody's house, carrying something in your that's stealing, but it's not carrying on Shabbos. You're not chayav for carrying on Shabbos until I take it out of your house.
Gotcha.
So and therefore that's why I'm going to be still liable for any damages. But if I drag it out, putter, because I never took possession of it in your property. Only by taking it out of your property do I actually take possession of it. But at that same moment that I took it out of your property is when I became liable for Shabbos. So as a result, I'm going to be exempt. Shaharei Isser Geneva, the Isser Skila, Ban Kecha, because they both came at the same time. The Hilchasa, so doesn't this pose a question to Rava? Because after all, Rava said that you should be liable to pay back the item itself no matter what, if it still exists. But here, it seems like there's no liability to pay back the purse if he dragged it out. So no, the halacha is that case was talking about where the purse got thrown into the river, meaning that there was no ability to return the original item. So that's the story. So again, no proof in either direction, but unfortunately, now we have Rava Iganvu le Dichre that he had stolen from him through somebody who tunneled into his property some rams. Adrinu nihale v'lo kiblinhu, and the burglar wanted to return them. He wanted to do tshuva, and Rava did not accept them. Amar ho v'nafek mipume derav, because Rav's ruling left his mouth, and he's my teacher, I have to follow his ruling, and therefore that's the way I'm going to behave, even though, again, it does not seem that is the halacha. It seems that the halacha is that you have to give it back. And it's interesting, and the Rishonim here all talk about, well, even if there's no obligation to give it back, there's no prohibition of the owner getting it back, so why didn't Rava take it? So that's a good question and beyond the scope of our discussion today. Okay, so Tana Rabbanan. So now the Gemara quotes a brisa that clarifies when the burglar can be killed. Okay, Ein lo damim. Their pasuk says that that this is Shmot Kaf Bet, Psukim Aleph and Bet. This is from last week's Parsha, and so we can call that a Daf Yomi coincidence. And of course, anything that is connected with these Parshiot, that have so many, that last week's Parsha that has so many mitzvot, it's not such a big coincidence. But in any event, so the Parak Kaf Bet, Pasuk Aleph and Bet reference the fact that the person has no blood, and it references if the sun shines upon him. Does the sun only shine on the burglar? Of course not. Ella imbar lecha hadavar kishemesh she'ein lo shalom imcha hargehu ve'im lav al targehu. No, the point is that when it's clear to you that if the guy is going to try and kill you, if you confront him, you are allowed to kill him. But if it's not clear, well, then you're not allowed. Tanya Idach, we have another brisa that seems to, that highlights this same principle and seems to suggest an opposite conclusion. Because what's the implication here is that in order for you to be able to kill the guy, it needs to be 100% clear he's gonna kill you. And if there's an uncertainty, well, then you don't kill him. But listen to the following brisa. Tanya idach im zarcha shemesh alav dam lo v'chi hashemesh alav b'lavad zarcha. Does the sun only shine on him? Ella im barer l'cha kashemesh sheyesh lo shalom imecha al target. When it's clear that he's not going to kill you, well, then you're not allowed to kill him. V'im lav hargehu. But if it's not clear, now in the case of uncertainty, you do kill him. So we seem to have a machlokas here. Kasha stama astama. We have a question from the plain case where it's unclear in those two situations. In the first brisa, it's you're not allowed to kill him, and the second you are.
It translates so well to today with modern policing.
100%.
You have a millionth of a second to make a decision.
100%. So this is a very key gemara for that. So lo kasha, no, it's not difficult. Kan ba'av al haben. No, when we say that we're going to go with, you have to have a complete clarity that the person who's digging in is going to kill you. That's where a father is digging into a son's home, because generally the father will have mercy on the son. And kan beven alav, whereas when it's a son against the father, or of course any third party against you, so then if they're digging in, well then unless it's 100% clear that they're never going to be violent with you, well then you can presume that they would be violent with you and you can act accordingly. So Amarav called the Asi Alai b'machtara ketilnalei. Anybody, Rav says, anybody who comes to try to burgle my house, I'm going to kill them. L'bar me Rav Chanina bar Shila, except for Rav Chanina bar Shila. If he were to come and dig into my house, I wouldn't kill him. My time, why not? So Elaim Mishum de Tzadiku. You want to tell me it's because he's such a righteous person? He's digging into your house. He's not a righteous person in this counterfactual. Ella Mishum de Kim le begave de Merachim alai kerachim al habain. No, it's because he views me like a son, and he is so merciful and kind to me, and he loves me so much that I know he wouldn't do any damage to me. All right, so that was one brisa. Next brisa, now we're going to quote one that notes that the law of tunneling burglars applies both on Shabbos and on weekdays. And we're going to say, well, why do you need to tell us that? But okay, so Tana Rabbanan, damim lo, Bain b'chol, Bain b'Shabbos. Doesn't make a difference when he has blood. It doesn't make a difference whether it's Shabbos or a weekday. Ain lo damim, and therefore you can kill him. Bain b'chol, Bain b'Shabbos. Doesn't make a difference whether it's a weekday or a Shabbos. Doesn't matter. Bishlama ain lo damim. It makes sense to tell me when the person doesn't have a blood. Bain b'chol, Bain b'Shabbos. It's drich. I need you to tell me that you can do it on Shabbos, because I might have thought mini dahavi aharuge beitin, that killing this guy is just like killing somebody in Beit Din. And what do we say about Beit Din? De b'Shabbos lo katlinan. You're not allowed to kill somebody in Beit Din. So kamash malan de katlinan. So as a result, we need to have the pasuk tell us specifically that you're allowed to kill this guy. El damim lo bein b'chol bein b'Shabbos. But when we say that the guy has blood and therefore you cannot kill him, whether it's Shabbos or a weekday, hashta b'cholo katlina lan. Well, you can't kill him on a weekday, but Shabbos mi boy. Is there any question that you can't kill him? Of course you can't kill him on Shabbos. So I'm a Rav Sheshis. Rav Sheshis explains, Lo nitzrucha el fakeach alav esagal. When there's a big pile of stone on top of him, that's where we need to know this law. Because what could happen when the guy digs under your wall?
He could bury himself.
He could bury himself, exactly. And there is a interesting discussion of when are you allowed to unbury somebody who is potentially dead, and therefore you are potentially violating the Shabbos in order to maybe save the guy. And the answer is that this person, if in fact he has blood and therefore you're not allowed to kill him, not only are you not allowed to kill him, but you need to go and rescue him if everything falls down on his head. On Shabbos. Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
Exactly. And so that is the bottom line, and that is the key principle from this brisa. So now the brisa quotes another the Gemara quotes another brisa, and now we're
Say
going to
that again. So this person is coming to kill. One person's coming to kill the other. He has to save him.
No, that the key is that it has to be a situation where either you're 100% sure with respect to a third party that he's not coming to kill you, or it has to be a father coming in underneath the ground to try and steal from a son, and you're not 100% sure that he was going to kill you. Those are the situations where we're talking about, where you have an obligation. But if in fact the person was trying to kill you, you should have no, in fact, it would be prohibited for you to try and rescue him on Shabbos.
Okay, that's what I
Okay?
thought. I thought you said
No,
the opposite.
100%. Okay, so Tana Rabbanim, V'huka. So now we're going to talk about how we do the killing. V'huka b'chol adam. It doesn't make it can be anyone who does the killing, right? So anybody can do it, and it says v'meis b'chol misa she'ata yachol lahamiso. You're allowed to use any method of killing. So one is it doesn't have to be the homeowner. And two is that it can be any kind of method. So Bishlam of Adam Itzrich, I understand why you need to tell me that you can kill the guy, with that anybody gets to kill the guy, because I might have thought Balabayas who the Kimlahu the Ain Adam Amidatzmo Almamono, that it's only when it comes to the person in the house, because we know that the person who's digging in the burglar who's digging in knows that the homeowner may come to defend himself and is willing to kill the guy. And so that's why we're going to allow the homeowner to kill the burglar. But Abal Acher Lo, maybe I might think that anybody else is not going to be threatened and is therefore not going to be a problem and therefore should not be able to kill the burglar. So Kamash Malan de Rodifu. Rather, we treat this person who's digging in like he's a pursuer. He's pursuing somebody to kill the guy. And Avafilu Acher Nami. And therefore, even somebody else is allowed to come and kill the guy. Ella v'meis b'chol misa sha'ata yachol lahamiso mirot lamali. Why do I need to tell us that? Why does the Torah need to tell us that you can use any method of killing? Mirot seach nafkol. We can learn from the fact that we have the law associated with a murder. Detanya mos yumas hamakeh harotzeachu. That you have to definitely kill the person who hit somebody and killed them because he is a murderer. Ainly I might have thought that this would only be the murder, the method of killing that the Torah prescribes. How do I know that you can use any kind of method to kill the guy? Talmud Lomar, Mos Yumas, he shall certainly be put to death, Mikol Makom, in any way. So as a result, why don't we learn from there? Well, Shiny Hassam, Da'amakra, Mos Yumas. Maybe it's different because over there it specifically says Mos Yumas. And so as a result, it doesn't say Mos Yumas over here. And so maybe the law is different. The Nigmar Mine, all right, but okay, so let's learn a binyan av from the situation of a murderer to other situations, and we would know that the tunneler also, the tunneling burglar would also be able to be killed in any method. No, mishum dahava rotzeach v'gol adam shnei ksuvim haban ke'echad. No, the problem is that pasuk that we just cited, the pasuk of Mos Yumas Hamakeh Rotzeachu, is not only telling us the law that a murderer can be killed by any means necessary, but also that an avenger who's avenging the blood of a relative has the right to kill the guy by any means necessary. And we have a principle that if you have one general law that applies in a specific case, well, then you're able to learn from that one specific case to all other relevant cases. But once the Torah goes out of its way to tell us that law applies to two situations, now you cannot make it into a general rule. And so as a result, we're not able to learn. And so that explains why we needed to have this less specific lesson here, because now we have three different situations where you're allowed to use any means necessary to kill the person. Okay, so Tanu Barabanan, next another brisa. What was that?
Didn't we learn, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, perhaps, that if a person was convicted by the Beit Din and he escapes, let's say, aren't you allowed to kill him by any method? It says
yes.
Mos Yumat there?
that's the Rotzeach. That's exactly this. This is, you're citing this case. This is the case this was that case. The case of the murderer, 100%.
Okay.
Okay, so Tanarach Banan Machteres, again, the person is tunneling, Ainli Ela Machteres. Now we go to the question that Stan asked. Gogo, Chatzero, Vikarpevo, Minayan. How do I know that if he comes in through the roof, through the courtyard, through an enclosure, how do we know that he's also going to be able to kill the guy? Hamalomar Yimatzeh Haganav. If the thief is discovered, Mikol Makom, doesn't make a difference where he's discovered. If he's coming in to burglar you, you are allowed to kill him. Im Kain Matamad Lomer Machteres. Why do we say the specific case of Machteres? Rov Ganavim Mitsuyim b'Machteres. Because that's the case. The common case is that the thief is working hard to not be discovered, and he's coming in a tunneling kind of manner. But Tanya Edach, we have another brisa that says a different point of view. Okay, and so and actually, it seems like the halacha may be according to this point of view. Machteres, ainli ala machteres. Really, the tunneling teaches us only about tunneling. Gago chatzeru v'karpevo minayin. How do I know about those other situations? Tamalomar yimetzei aganav. You find the thief. Mikol makom. It could be in any case. Im kain matamalomer machteres. Why is Machteres treated differently? Machtarto zuhi hasraso. When it comes to Machteres, when it comes to somebody who's tunneling in, that's his warning. Meaning, if the person is coming in a clear method of trying to kill the person, or in using a method that is generally used to try and kill the person, we can assume that this person is trying to kill you, and you don't have to give him any kind of warning. No hands up. Just shoot upon sight. Okay. However, and Rashi gives us the additional details. Zuhi hasra. So top wide line in the Rashi. She'ein sarach hasra acheres. He needs no additional warning. Ela horgo miyad. Kill him right away. Dekevan de Torah umasar nafshe. Because he went out of his way, he's giving up his life. Lachtor to try and dig in. Adaita dehachi. He knows that this is the outcome. Asa, that is coming to him. That if somebody were to come and confront him, he would kill the guy. Because he's chasing the guy, just like a rodef does not need any kind of warning. If you see somebody chasing somebody to shoot somebody, you can get involved. Elametzilin oto, rather benafsho. You can save yourself or save the person who's the victim by killing the rodef, killing the chaser. But if the guy walks in an open door, Eino Horgo, you're not allowed to kill him. Until you warn him in front of witnesses. Chazi the ka'amina ba'apech v'katilnalach. Right? That you got to stop. I'm going to kill you. V'zeh yikabel alav hasra v'yomer yodea ani v'al manaskein. I understand, and I'm still going to try and rob you. Ani oseh al manaskein ani oseh. And even though I'm doing that. She'im tamod lenegdi arog otach. That if you stand up against me, I'm going to kill you. Aval below hasra, low. But without warning, in those other situations, you would not be allowed to kill. The dilma lav adaite denavshos kasi. Maybe he's not trying to actually come and kill you. Ela de ashkach piska. But he found the door open. Lahaja va'al adaite degikai ba'apeh nalipuk. And if you come and confront him, he'll leave right away. So as a result, you're not allowed to kill in that situation. So that is that's a situation. And so as a result, it's only in the case of the tunneling that you'd be allowed to kill the guy.
But no, if the person walks in the door and starts shooting.
Yeah, of course, that's a different case, 100%. As soon as it's clear that he goes into a rodef situation, then the law changes to rodef, not a burglar. Okay, so let's finish up. Amar Rav Huna, Katan Harodif. What if a minor is the one who's doing the chasing? Nitan lahatzilo benafsho. You can save the other person's life by killing the minor. Kasava Rodev Einu Tzarech Hasra, because it's clear that Rav Huna believes that a pursuer does not need any kind of warning. Loshna Gadol, Loshna Kata. Doesn't make a difference whether he's an adult or a child. So Eisei Rav Chisda Rav Huna. So now this is one of the most important abortion-related Gemaras. So listen closely. So Rav Chisda asked the question, what about the following Mishnah? Yatsa Rosho, if the mother is in the process of giving birth and the head comes out, Aina Noginbo, we're no longer allowed to do anything to this child in order to save the mother's life. Lefisha Ein Dochen Nefesh Mipnei Nefesh, because one life can't predominate another. And Rashi specifically notes that before that moment, before the head comes out, somebody is allowed, in order to save the mother, even in the 9th month, to go in and do what they, I guess, may call a partial birth abortion, but to effectively chop the baby up and pull out the pieces in order to save the mother. Well, why don't we treat the baby as a rodef and say that he doesn't need any warning? And so doesn't the fact that we can't kill the baby as a rodef indicate that we do need to give a rodef a warning? No. Shiny Hasam to Mishmaya Karad Fela. It is not, in fact, the baby that is chasing the mother, but rather Hashem has created a situation where effectively they are chasing each other. And so as a result, that's not going to be a situation where you can learn and thereby disprove the statement of Rav Huna. Nema Messiah. Let's say that we have proof for Rav Huna from the following: Rodev Shahaya, Rodev Achar Chaveru Lahargo. So if somebody's pursuing somebody to kill them, Amrlo, the pursuer should say, Re'eshi Yisraelhu Uven Brisu. This person that you're chasing is Jewish. Torah Amra Shofek Damha Damba Adam Damo Yeshafek. And the Torah says that whoever sheds blood or is attempting to shed blood, you're allowed to shed that person's blood. So Amra Torah Hatzel Damo Shel Zeh B'Damo Shel Zeh. I'm allowed to save this person by killing you. So Rashi notes that the implication of not indicating in this brisa that there was any response by the rodef, it shows that it's not actually, this statement is not truly a legal warning. And so as a result, this shows that you don't need a warning. So isn't that a proof for Rav Huna? No. Hahi Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. That's a case of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. Titania Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer Chaver Ein Sarach Hasra. No, that's talking about somebody who knows the law. If he's a Talmud Chacham and he knows the law, you according to Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, you don't need to give any warning to a chacham. That the whole reason of hasra is to distinguish between those who are doing it intentionally and those who are not intentionally. So now, third effort to try and prove one way or the other. Now we're going to again try to refute Rav Huna. Tashma, harodif shahaya rodif achar chaveru lahargo. Somebody's chasing somebody. Omer lo, you're supposed to say to the chaser, Re'esh Yisrael hu uven brisu. This person is Jewish and he's a member of the tribe. He's don't do anything. Torah Omra shovek damaha dam dam damo yishafech. You're going to spill blood and you're going to die as a result. Im Amar. If the pursuer says, Yodeya Anishahu Kain, I know that he's true, putter. That is not enough in court to then later come and kill the guy. Almanaskin Aniosef. But if he adds, even though that's all true, I'm still doing this, then Chayiv. Now he's all of a sudden liable. So doesn't this show, originally our assumption is that we're talking about that only then can the third party go and kill the pursuer. Isn't that what we're talking about? No, lo tzricha dekai betray ivrei denahara. No, we're talking about a situation where the pursuer is on one side of the river and the person who's yelling the warning is on the other side of the river. So he has no ability to stop the guy and kill him now. Delomatzi atzule. There's no ability to save. So, but rather, I'm going to bring the guy to court. So my Ika, So what is the person going to do? He's going to try and bring him to court. Beidina by hasra, and a court needs a warning. And so this is how you give a warning to somebody who is engaging in murder. The first step is, if you can stop the guy, you should stop the guy. But if you can't stop the guy, then you have to let him know that he's trying to kill somebody and that there's a punishment of death. So, or you can say, Amar lach Rav Huna, Ana de Amrika Tana de Machteret. No, I agree with the Tana that we saw of Habab and Machteret that says that if somebody's coming underneath, then you don't need to warn the guy. De Amar b'Machtar to Zuhi Asra to, that this brisa that we just cited could actually disagree with the brisa that we cited earlier. And the bottom line is that I have a Tana that agrees with me, and so everything is wonderful. So
what is the case? He's telling the person, no, you can't kill him. I'm telling you this. I'm going to bring you to court. So the guy's
correct.
holding a gun. He says, no, you can't do that. I'm going to bring you to court so they give you a warning. I mean, isn't that ridiculous?
Well, remember, of course, we're not talking about guns because
whatever the weapon is.
The guy's
okay?
holding a knife. The point is that you're on the other side of the river. He is no threat to you on the other side of the river. He can't, he's not going to throw the knife across the river. Then he can't. First of all, if he does, that's wonderful, because then he's not going to be able to kill the other guy because he needs the knife in order to kill the other guy. But the point is that he is not a threat to you, but you have no ability to save the person that he's chasing with the knife.
Then you don't have a way to save him, then you should be
of course.
Him.
That's why we say that we're dealing with a situation where it's on the other side of the river, and so he has no ability to save the guy. Exactly.
So what's the point of hatra then? I mean,
no, because once you have given hasra, now we can catch the guy 3 weeks later, and the hasra that has been given will now cause the guy to be subject to the death penalty.
But he's on the other side of the river. And he says, I'm coming to kill this other fella. And you say, no, you don't do that. You're not allowed to. And then, and 3 minutes later, that your person to whom you're shouting then kills the person. I mean, what?
Correct. Exactly. But now the question is we want to enforce the law against that person, right? So you have person A and person B are on one side of the river. Person A is chasing person B. You are on the other side of the river with Stan, and the two of you shout over to the, or one of you shouts over to to person A, listen, person B is Jewish, you can't go ahead and kill him. You're going to be subject to the death penalty. And person says, A says, you know what? I understand that, all true, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then he goes ahead and he kills person B. Now 3 weeks later, 5 months later, a year and a half later, the bottom line is finally we find and catch person A. And you and Stan come to court and say, we saw person A kill person B, and we specifically gave person A a warning. So that is the necessary prerequisite for us to now kill person A.
Okay.
All right. All right, so that brings us to the next Mishnah, which differentiates between when we can kill someone who is about to commit a sin and when we cannot. So for that discussion, stay tuned to tomorrow's daf. Have a fabulous day.